To the young people, I say welcome to the 7th East African Community Youth Leadership Summit. You will recall, ladies and gentlemen, that this beautiful capital of Kenya was chosen by popular vote by the youth of Africa to host this year's summit. The Youth Leadership Program states, but through Pan-African reach. This is testament to the fact that the Youlead Summit program has grown and become a platform that the youth of this great continent feel proud to be associated with. They look forward to meaningful and deliberations on their roles in driving the East African Community's Vision 2050 and the African Union's their able leadership of the Youth Leadership Summit. When I was growing up, I personally benefited from the mentorship by the senior leaders of our country. At a very tender age, big man. Why they chose me, I don't know. Since then, I have been closely following the work of the Youlead Secretariat under the leadership of the community. Who is reading the Secretariat? Stand up. This. It is these beautiful young ladies who have made it happen. Give them another round of applause. Business, peace and security, and gender equality. At this. So if you young people, at your age, before assuming higher positions of leadership, the minister here is a young man. How old are you? Yeah? He's 47. He's still very young. Kwa lugha ya Kiswahili kule kwetu tunasema bado anadai. He has already arrived there. But I became minister at the age of 38. I was younger than you when I first became minister in 1988. But the point you are saying here is governance. Governance is one of our major deficits. And if young people at your age can grasp what is it that constitutes governance, democratic governance, fighting vices in society and in offices of power, if you guys can't grasp what is supposed to be done, you'll make your voice heard by those in power who are not governing by the rules. So, Professor Maloka, thank you so much for your contribution. As he already said, there is a memorandum of understanding that was signed between APRM Secretariat and the Youlead Africa Secretariat for the purposes of advancing, of inculcating in the young people the ethos of governance. In the same vein, I've been following with appreciation the tripartite collaboration between the Youlead Africa, the Office of the African Union Youth Envoy, and the Plan International in co-delivering the Lead Her Fellowship, which aims to address young women between the age of 18 and 25 from Eastern and Southern Africa to ensure their engagement and participation in the fields of politics, business, peace and security. Plan Africa, are you here? And oh yeah, sure. And it is good, it's Plan Africa and very African. But we thank you. We have to empower and mentor women in leadership. One of the things that we are doing in my foundation is mentoring women, young women, for leadership. We are trying. I think probably in the next 1 year, we may be able to come up with the first cohort of young women that we have successfully mentored and ready to take up positions of leadership in the future. But it's something very important for us to do, and we have to continue to do it. Excellencies, in 2021, we implored the possibility of creating a meaningful opportunity of apprenticeship as part of youth leadership development. This idea has given birth to the East African Community Youth Fellowship. And on that note, Honorable Peter Mathuki and I are impressed by the work of the Youlead Secretariat and the East African Community Youth Leadership Steering Committee. Are there members of the Youth Leadership Steering Committee of the EAC? Stand up. Stand up to be counted, so that we know we have the good people who are doing a lot of work behind the scenes. If we don't mention them, and if we don't recognize them, people may think that things happen on their own. But they are not happening on their own. There are people who are putting their brains and energies to develop those things. Please sit down. Thank you for the wonderful work you are doing. We applaud you for conceptualizing, developing and implementing the notable fellowship that capacitates youth of the East African Community region for greater participation in public service, in politics and business. We believe this will assist in further strengthening regional integration. Well, it would be remiss of me if I did not acknowledge and commend the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center. Are there representatives here? The Emerging Leaders Foundation, wote mpo safi, and the Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete Foundation. He's one of the young men we have just taken out. He's finished university and he's working in our foundation. We are doing mentorship. By 2050, Africa will have a population of 2.4 billion. 1.2 billion of these will be young people. How many years to 2050? Those who of you passed mathematics, I didn't. Huh? 27 years. Who is 27 amongst you here?
But it was evident And then Darling Cow, Bihogo, the Darling Cow, you guys had so much energy. The flag was amazing. The dancers as well were amazing. So before we announce the final team, our colleague from France.
Yes, please.
Yes, but I'm not sure I have the best skills to be able to judge. I'm really limiting and dancing, but I love the fun on the right. I love the synchronization there, and I love the flag. Yeah, but you'd never see me dancing, and I hope it will never be the case. I'm really limited.
But time is now. Thus, it goes without saying that the capacity building for the successors of family-owned institutions, governments, regional organizations, and global foundations remain a redeemer for the hope of the bold and enthusiastic Africa's young population. We therefore indebted to invest in our future, basic research, practical skills, innovation, and infrastructure that will allow us to compete, negotiate, invent, pioneer, and complement skills to enhance the youth endurance in the 21st century and the prosperity's sake. The conversions of artificial intelligence, or as usually known AI, and the fourth industrial revolution should not come as a threat to jobs, work, and the future of man's IQ, but apparatus to enhance skills, curative localized solution, harness the transformation power to accelerate the achievement from the smallest unit at the society to the national and global development. In essence, we cannot downplay the unrivaled diligence and mission qualities exhibited by our development partners and relevant stakeholders inside and beyond the African borders who toil to bridge the gap between Africa's youthful demographics and the opportunities for growth via providing a platform for young individuals to showcase and exercise talents, foster and promote networking, collaboration, partnerships, and interactions that would bring the Africa-led solutions on the decision-making tables. As Youlead Africa summoned us here for the week-long Africa's largest youth leadership forum, it is worth to recognize the transitional journey and potential for sustainable programmatic youth engagement structures. After 6 years, as Stella said, the summit is held in Nairobi for the first time. The rational attribution to this summit was voted by the young people themselves. It seconds the pursuit for a gradual shift at the continental level to intensify the immense potential and transformational change and scale up of the program ushered into digital realities. This is to recognize the majority of over 1,000 young leaders who are attending online today. May we give them a clap as they have joined us. As I conclude, we are at the verge of the realization of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa. The African Union Agenda 2063 places a premium on youth empowerment in the 50-year-long continent's development trajectory. Strategies to enrich the youth with prerequisite skills over qualifications, intergenerational dialogues over age stereotypes, professionalism over connections, and sustainable learning platforms over short-lived and resource-limited projects with precedents from the blueprint and master print, we shall obtain our outstretched shared humanity and values. As I see myself out of here and spare the day from lectures, let's engage, learn, interact, forge meaningful relationships and partnerships. Let us refocus the prepositions based on interest, be it politics, business, gender equality, or peace and security, among others. We will leave the bombers of Kenya after the summit with a collective accord and united front to hasten the crafting and delivery of the Africa-led solutions.
East Africa, North Africa, we have a civil war taking place in Sudan. But at the same time, there are a number of exciting things that are taking place on the continent. You have the Continental Free Trade Agreement that has come into force, and countries have started trading. You have countries that are opening up. Kenya just announced that Africans of all descent, including those in the diaspora, can freely come to Kenya without need of a visa. So at this time, when 3/4 of the continent are young people under the age of 35, we need to have real, meaningful conversations.
Please. Another.
Youth-driven solutions to share her inputs into her experience on climate.
Hello, you can hear me? Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you to the Youlead team for, first of all, coming to Kenya. I remember when I met Stella earlier this year, she told me most of the delegates from the Youlead Summit last year had recommended to come to Kenya, and I as well agreed with them. So let me say to everyone who is here, karibuni sana Kenya. Please feel at home. This is a country where we love the young people, right from our president to our first lady to myself. So I pray you feel at home, and I pray you're having a wonderful time in Kenya. So now to the question that you asked me as a young person who is in the climate space, how do I view it? I want to just make a slight correction. So I run my climate activities through SMAC's Foundation, which in full is Smart Mechanized Agriculture and Climate Action for Humanity and Sustainability. It's a long acronym, but it's SMACHS. Now, the reason for this is because I do see a nexus between agriculture and climate action, because the complaint is that many areas have been cleared of trees or forests so that they can make room for agriculture as an economic activity. And this is not something that started recently, but I've been reading Wangare Maathai's book, Unbowed, which coincidentally I was gifted by someone from the Youlead Summit last year. And this has been an issue all the way from the 90s. So it's always been a challenge and a back and forth between picking, do we do an economic activity or do we save our environment, and do we make way for climate change action? And I think what is happening in the climate space is that we are finding a way to do a bit of both, because the truth is, as young people, we need a source of livelihood, right? We want to make money, we want to put food on our table, and many of the young people I meet are actually breadwinners in their families. Their parents have retired or don't have work, so they're the ones who are depended on. So you find this young person has such a passion about their environment and climate action, and like the brother who gave his suggestions on climate justice, you can really tell he's so passionate about it. So finding then this nexus, how do we get to meet our needs, our personal needs, and still do our passion within environment. And I think that's what we are able to do when we do actions such as having tree nurseries. About 2 weeks ago, we had the National Tree Planting Day in Kenya, and as SMAC's Foundation, we partnered with Small Axe Enterprise. They actually, along Nairobi River, our sister was saying how there have been floods, and even Stella was sharing with me how the river Euphrates is drying up. So, for example, in Nairobi River, we went and planted bamboo trees. Bamboo trees, why? Because they won't suck up the water from the river, and they'll provide, their root system is good enough to be planted along the river, and many other benefits that bamboo trees offer. So these young people, they are then able to make a living, because we bought the tree seedlings from them, and I think a bamboo tree seedling goes for like 500 Kenya shillings, which is roughly $5. We were able to support them by buying from their tree nursery, but as well planting the trees with them and supporting the initiative that they are doing. So within what I see happening within the climate space and young people in the climate space is finding this nexus between having something that supports our livelihoods as well as being able to engage in our passion for the environment. Thank you, Emmanuel, for clarifying what exactly you meant. And I think for young people, it starts from a public participation level so that we even avoid situations where we have to repeal policies. But for the policies in place that are not working, yes, we should repeal, we should fight against them so that we can have the right policies in place. And I think this means as young people, we have to read a lot, we have to be aware of what is happening so that we can actually know what to inform on. There's a gentleman, he directed a question to me, but I see he walked away. I don't know what happened. But he was asking more about policy and youth-led policy and implementation measures, and how there can be collaboration between government and youth on the implementation of policy. I think since the young people in this room mostly are within the policy space, and when it comes to matters climate action, your work will speak for itself. We had the Africa Climate Summit a few months ago, and we actually had the Africa Youth Climate Assembly as a precursor to the Africa Climate Summit, and the young people were able to sit and advise on what the heads of state should discuss when it comes to matters climate. Now, the young people who organized that, it was their own initiative. They're the ones who came together. They've been in the climate space for a while, and they came together and formed the Africa Youth Climate Assembly, and they invited young people from across the continent, and as well they invited me to be a part of it. And I really saw that they took the initiative upon themselves. It was sleepless nights, but as young people, we really have to be the ones to take the initiative. So if, for example, you have ideas on water policy, you have to get yourself involved in forums like this. You have to go, when you hear your ministry at your home country is organizing a forum, just go and attend. Go and knock on doors. I mean, as young people, yes, at first you may be dismissed, but you knock that door again and again and again, they are only going to ignore you for so long, number one. Number two, as young people, let's not go on individual basis. Let's form communities of like-minded other young people. If 5 or 6 of us are interested in the same thing, we can form an association and where the young people's network on water solutions. I mean, if you go to your minister of water and you're organized, he's not going to put you aside, because also they know as young people we have the numbers. So I think those are the two recommendations I'd give based on the question. And my last conclusion is, how do we plant trees? I've been to so many. How many people here, first of all, have planted a tree? I see 3/4 of the room. That's good. Now, because we have planted a tree before, how do we plant trees? What's the success rate, the survival rate of our trees? Do we go and visit the trees after we plant them? Because now that's how we'll move from tree planting to tree growing. When we had the National Tree Planting Day, I learned something I've never learned before. At that forum, the trees we planted, all the little black bags that the tree is in before we plant it, all of them we salvaged, each and every one of them. All the tree planting sessions have been before. We usually tear the bag and then they are collected and disposed. But that one, we learned how to massage the roots of the tree so that we are able to fully pull out the little black bag and it can be reused for another tree planting session. There are so many things about the simplicity of how we do our tree planting. It's not just about putting the tree in and covering it with soil. No, we need to backfill the holes. We need to have softer soil so that when the roots begin to penetrate, it's easier for them. And I think as young people, these are the messages we need to keep carrying across. Climate change sounds like such a complicated thing. I'm imagining for a 12-year-old somewhere in my home county of Uasin Gishu, who she probably has never left that county to come to a city like this. So if we say climate change, how do we explain it to her? So let's go down into the simpler and easier conversations, because that is actually where the action is. Thank you.
Research work, just trying to have a conversation on what are some of these social norms that are promoting or inhibiting harmful cultural practices. And finally, I just want to thank everyone in the audience, especially the different contributions that we are all bringing to the table to this conversation. And the more these conversations are had, the more we engage, the more we share ideas, we will have a better society where the rights of girls, young women, and men are protected. Thank you.
Hi everyone, once again. So based on the dialogue that we've had today, I'd just like to highlight that again, all our voices matter. The narrative that's been pervasive throughout the summit has been, we need to move from being people of policies, people of dialogue, people of conversation, to people of action. Okay? And that means we need to highlight the voices of those on the ground. All right? And that means, again, through research, through getting your voices, through narrating your stories and putting them out there so we can really get a truly diverse and rich knowledge framework that we can then use to truly implement and supplement the policies that are in place instead of, trying to create new ones. Let's review what's there, and again, highlighting the work that we do as, the Lead Her Fellowship, grooming young women to take up the mantle as peace and security leaders, business leaders, as well as politics and governance leaders. Me, in my own capacity, I do some volunteer work for different organizations, working for the South African Institution for International Affairs, having done volunteer work for them, creating gender-related plans to basically bolster the South African gender-related framework so we can have a really well-coordinated gender framework at the national level. So essentially, today, let's try and harness each other's ideas, share, exchange knowledge, so we can truly become the Africa we want and work together as youth to mobilize our voices and keep being the change. Thank you.
When you see a woman taking a leadership position, trust me, they've had to go through a lot of barriers in life. Think about when they're joining school, or even the idea that they are not supposed to join school. That already sets them behind. Then you come to the retention rate in schools, and you find that girls still bear the brunt of being left behind when it comes to education. When you look at such inequalities, it shows you that when it comes to the labor market, majority of women are still in the informal sector, which means they cannot compete with men. Think about it. Recognizing unpaid care work hasn't been done, has not been recognized yet. And so when you look at all these things, and a leader, a woman has taken a leadership position and they're vying for a position, and they still have to grapple with the idea of patriarchy because people in a certain area have decided on negotiated democracy. That tells you how much and how long we have to work to be able to achieve these things. And so that's why we are out as a representative of a network. We are out to really empower young women and girls, women and girls basically, to be able to know their rights so that they are able to access the rights that they require for them to be able to participate fairly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I would love to focus on peace and security in line with the women, since more also my background is also more in peace sector. So when it comes to conflict, we need to also reframe, like using gender mainstreaming and gender focused sensitivity analysis, because during the same conflict settings there are specific challenges women has been facing, including gender-based violence, sexual violence, not only on the conflict setting but also in post-conflict settings. That's why it's really quite essential to build also a safe space for women specifically, because there are some specific challenges they have been facing because of their gender. And that's why I firmly support also the implementations of those policies, the implementation of those regional global aspirations to the ground level, to the community, because we need to support the grassroots movements. That's how we can create a sustainable change. And for me, maybe just to say a little bit about my work also related with women, youth, peace and security, I also focus on reintegration and rehabilitation, where people in post-conflict setting face a lot of challenge, physical, mental, emotional, psychological, internally, but also external challenges, which is lack of opportunities. So what I would like to ask for the people here in this room is also, it starts from our day-to-day action. How are we referring those, how are we using these gender framings? maybe if I'm not running out of time, I'm running out of time. So this is what I would like to ask. Just in everyday, day-to-day life, let's support women. Let's also try to use gender mainstreamings, and it also starts from our actions. And thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm going to sit here because I'm part of an organization that likes to dismantle structures that don't work. And I'd like to call the rest of the panelists on this side to join. So I'm part of a consortium of young Pan-Africanists and Pan-Africanists who identify themselves as Pan-Africanist feminists. Very intense.
Please. Another mic. Okay, now we're assuming all of us know each other's name.